Is it just me, or is running a business super overwhelming at times? Especially if you're a small business owner or a solopreneur, you're juggling so many things. You're hopefully super busy with client work, but you've also got all the marketing that you have to be doing on an ongoing basis. You have the systems and processes side of your business that need to be dealt with, the boring stuff, as I say. And then you also have the other parts of your life. Hopefully, your business is not the be all and end all of your life, right? You have people that you love, you have people that rely on you, you have a social life, you have hobbies and interests and things that you're passionate about. You have a house to run, you have all the pieces of adulting that everyone is dealing with. But on top of that, you also have the stress of how am I going to pay myself and my employees and for health insurance and all of those pieces every month, right? This is an ongoing struggle and it can get really overwhelming. So I'm really excited about today's conversation with Pamela King, who is a small business optimizer with a knack for turning chaos into streamlined success. She spent 15 years as an educator in Northeast Ohio before transitioning into this work, and she really honed those skills of strategic planning, clear communication, and personalized problem solving to now help busy entrepreneurs build efficient systems and scale their businesses with confidence. In today's conversation, we talk about lots of different topics related to time management, productivity, efficiency, procrastination, all that jazz. We dig into why time management is such a struggle for so many female entrepreneurs in particular, whether work-life balance is actually a thing or if it's just a myth. And Pamela shares some really key tips that you can take away from this conversation. I got one really good nugget that I'm definitely going to be putting into practice. So you're in for a treat with today's episode. Let's dive in. Hey there, beautiful human. Welcome to the Bold Women in Business podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Honeyman, a content marketing, branding, and web design expert and founder of Honey Be Bold. This show is all about helping you build the most successful and fulfilling business possible so you can make a bigger impact in the world. Let's dive in. So, Pamela, why is time management such a challenge for so many women in business? And what would you say are some of the biggest struggles you see female entrepreneurs facing when it comes to productivity?
Sure. Well, I would say, it's obviously something as the entrepreneur, but I think it's something we face across the board, whether we stay home or, work a corporate job. But I think especially as an entrepreneur, because not only do you have to stay in your zone of genius, but we've got to do everything, right? So you're doing your own marketing, you're doing your web design, your copy, your accounting, your graphic design, all those extra pieces, plus your personal life, your household, all those things. So, we panic and we say, oh, my life's a mess. And I like to say, are you messy or are you a mess? There's a lot of things, but we can tighten things up. We can have it stacked. We can find opportunities where time gets kind of lost to free up the time for the things that really matter. So whether that's work-life balance or scaling or, trying to have time for a side hustle, any of those things.
Yeah. So you mentioned work-life balance. I would love to hear, is that a real thing? I feel like it's one of those things that people say, and there are different opinions that I've heard. Is that even a thing that we should be striving for? Does the idea of work-life balance kind of perpetuate this idea that women have to do it all, right? You have to just juggle your work and family and friends and all the things at the same time, and also take care of yourself. There's just so many things that we're juggling. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that concept of work-life balance.
Sure. Well, I'll say, overall, I think the answer is it's different for every person. That's part of what I'm so proud of in the work I do is everything is tailored specifically. I'm not selling the Pamela King 3-step system. And if you just finally buckle down and use these habits, everything will be different.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of defining success for yourself. Because some of us, it might be, oh, I need to hit a certain number. Other people, it might be, hey, I want to have the time to do pick up and drop off, or I really want to grow my own food in my garden and that's going to be time. So I think it's more about defining and making those pockets of time. And that way we're not burned out on any one thing. Because I think we also blame, oh, well, burnout is only because of work, but it's not. It's that feeling, that pressure to achieve, to, bake your own bread and take care of your kids and work and all the other things. So,
right.
I mean, it's a little bit of a myth. The 40-hour work week was created assuming you had a partner staying home doing absolutely everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so Most of us don't have a 1950s housewife. So without that piece, the 40-hour work week really is not sustainable.
Yeah, I always say I would be just on top of the world if I had a wife. I don't know. I think I would achieve so much.
Vacuuming in pearls when you come home, absolutely. Yeah, what's not to like?
Exactly. So, how do you kind of approach shifting that mindset around that? It's been so ingrained in us to think like we need to do it all. We need to do it all perfectly well. And we need to look like we're doing it well, right? All that really compounds. And it's really hard to shake that when it's been so ingrained in us. I'm sure this is something that you work on a lot with your clients.
It absolutely is. And I'll say, I'm not a coach. The mindset, those kind of things, that a true coach might be a better fit, but there's definitely conversations I have. And then based on what we discuss, I make framework. I do done for you to kind of help you. Because, we'll say the answer is to delegate. And sure, that sounds great. But how do we successfully delegate? Maybe you even already have staff and they're like, okay, they can do these tasks, but they can't handle the higher level, or they spend a lot of time, they get lost in the database, they're intimidated. That's not a staffing problem. That's a training problem. That's a confidence problem. So I help create systems, checklists, write out the SOPs, daily, weekly, monthly tasks. If we document and make videos that they can go back, how do we run this report? How do we access the database? If they need to check it 100 times, so be it. Those things exist. And as the owner, you can feel confident handing things off because if your person's following that checklist or following those SOPs, it is going to be done, and it's going to be done to your level of expectation, right? We all think either we should do it ourselves or no one will do it to our level. It's got to have my magic on it.
Yeah.
That just means you're not training your people well enough. You can empower them to do it. And even, a lower cost VA or something has a lot of capability that we're often not tapping into. And so we're not as comfortable handing things off to them. Whereas if that structure is there, that's going to empower them and that will give them the ability to take it and run with it. So that frees up your time. So then you get to stay in your zone of genius. And whether that's you doing, your high level tasks or you doing your sales calls or, any of those things that really do need to be you in your FaceTime versus the stuff that can be handled off and not just the lowest level administrative tasks, but that was middle pieces.
Yeah, I love that. And I relate to that very much because I'm a little bit of a control freak sometimes, especially I think when it comes to the creative work, like it's hard to let go of that. But I have found the more that I've let go of the reins, it's a work in progress, but the more I've done that, the more I'm able to actually lean into the pieces that really fuel me and make me really proud of the work that I'm putting out.
Absolutely. And it's hard when these are our companies, these are our babies, these are our names and our reputations, but you absolutely could put things in place to make sure your team or project managers are executing at your level. And that way it really is going to just let you supercharge. And then that frees up that time to do whatever those things are that you care to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on time blocking? Do you think that it's an effective tool for entrepreneurs and kind of dealing with the overwhelm?
I think so for sure. Even when we think we're good multitaskers, there's buffering when we're switching between tasks. So if I'm working, but I'm going to hop over and check my email. I'm going to open this tab. I'm going to respond to this comment or this DM. There is brain buffering. Prior to this, I was a public school teacher for 15 years. And the majority of that, I was the regular ed teacher in an inclusion classroom. I was working with neurodivergent students of all different situations and diverse learners. So I've learned a lot about how our brains work, whether neurotypical or not. And so much of it is that if we can chunk out our time, if we can kind of stay focused, whether that's actually using a timer or time blocking, that does really help. Even when we think, oh, I know I'm great. I'm a great multitasker. You'd be surprised. And so my offering is I have a time audit where you track your time for 5 days in little 30-minute sections and you actually write what you really did. And just like a food log or anything else, it's only as effective as you are honest,
Yep.
But if you can say, oh, okay, I was on social media or I answered the phone or I started adding revisions to this and it got away from me, you'd be surprised how much of our time gets away from us. I did this recently with a client and she works from home. Long story short, she realized she was letting her young, healthy dog out like every 2 hours. Whenever it signaled, it'd go to the door. She didn't think about it. She's like, oh, okay, time to go out. She lives in a condo. She had to walk down the stairs through 2 locked doors, talk to a neighbor. Each of those is 15, 20 minutes. That's easily an hour a day that was lost that she didn't even see she was losing. It's one thing to say,
Yeah.
oh, I took a meeting, or, oh, I was in the car. But like, there's no reason that dog can't go longer than 2 hours.
Right,
It was
right.
just whenever it thought, and she, like, oh yeah, sure. And it's good to get up and stretch your legs. If you want to take those breaks, that's one thing. If you're like, oh, that's what I need to do, or it's nice to talk to my neighbors, if that's something you value and prioritize, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you feel that's a loss and you would rather have that hour to do something else, those are the things we can uncover. And then from there, use other strategies to then, let's use that hour to meet a friend for coffee or go to the gym or, whatever else you want to do.
Yeah, I think those time leaks are such a sneaky way of increasing overwhelm, right? Like we have a tendency to downplay, oh, this little task, it's no big deal. I'll just kind of answer this or deal with this, and it really does make a difference. And I think I see that as, as a business owner, one of the things that I had to work on is the idea that I have to get back to clients immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And I had this idea early on in my business where I was like, well, I always need to be checking my email because I always need to be getting back to my clients immediately. And then I realized, A, my clients don't get back to me immediately, right? Because they're busy. And B, nobody expects instant replies anymore. We all know that everyone's busy. Everyone has a million things going on. Yeah, I shouldn't let it go days without a response. But if I wait a few hours to respond, that's not a big deal. That's as close to an immediate response as anyone's going to expect.
Absolutely. And I would say too, depending on your business, because obviously they're all different, but I think that's the danger. We've been told, oh, you should use Voxer, you should use Slack, you don't need to be that available. I mean, I get like, let's say you own an IT company and you have agents in the field doing repairs and they need to say, hey, I tried A, I tried B, what should I do? Okay, that needs an immediate dialogue. But if it's your clients checking in, maybe say, hey, it's emails, or it's going to be 24 hours or even 3 or 4. I was always very good about not opening my emails until I got into work mode, but that would always be then the first thing I did of the day, right? You sit down, you're ready, you open the email. Then your day has already been taken over by somebody else. So something I'm kind of experimenting with is I set my priority of the 3 things I'm doing for me or for my business, my client work, whatever those 3 things are. And then once those 3 things are done, then I get into the email. And then your day is not being hijacked by somebody else and their requests or their, like, oh, I've got to clarify this, or I got to get back, or, oh, they need this piece from me. Like you said, they can wait a few hours. And it's really incredible how setting even those kind of boundaries can open up your time, similar to what we were talking about. Not only is it time blocking, but it also kind of is working with your natural biorhythms and energy. Because if you're sharpest first thing in the morning, don't waste it on responding to somebody's emails, putting out someone else's fires. Do your genius work. And then when you're ready for a little break, something a little lighter, that's maybe when to do social media or emails.
That sounds like such a simple idea, but it's actually a framing that I haven't heard before. And I think that the other piece of that is it allows you, because I do very values driven branding work. I work with my clients to really uncover what are the values driving their business? Why do they exist? All of my clients exist for a much bigger purpose than just making money, right? They're trying to make a real impact in the world. And so I think that when we think of it in terms of that also is saying, okay, what are the things that I need to get done? Not just because I have this long to-do list, but I'm thinking for myself, what are the things that I want to start my day with because they fuel that really values-driven side of my business? Yeah, there are always going to be parts of your business that you have to get them done, right? I have to run my books. I have to do all those things. But I love the idea of starting the day with that very deep work and then getting into the kind of nitty-gritty that just has to get done.
But the thing is maybe some people need a little bit of more of a warm-up. And perhaps your energy is, hey, I'm going to do the lighter work. And then after an hour, then I'm firing on all cylinders. It's a time audit, but also kind of an energy audit. If you book me in the afternoon, you're not getting the best out of me. Like I'll be in the meeting, but I'm not going to be as sharp as if it's earlier in the day. You've got to kind of listen to yourself, and it's your values, it's your energy plus the time. That's the alchemy of it. When you kind of lock those in, that's when you can really see huge change and supercharge in your business and still also be reaching the other important, is it important to you to get a certification or something outside of work?
Yeah, I love that. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break. Quick question, fellow female entrepreneur. Is your messaging actually doing its job? Attracting the right people and making them stop in their tracks and say, wow, I must work with her. And most importantly, getting them to actually take action on that. If you're making a not so sure face right now, then it's time for a messaging glow up. My free mini course, 3 Days to Bold Messaging That Converts, will help you refine your messaging so you can attract more of those clients you dream about without second guessing every word you write. Oh, and did I mention you'll get personalized feedback from me too? Yep, all for free. Snag your spot at honeybeebold.com/free. That's HoneyBeebold.com/FREE. And let's make your messaging work for you instead of against you. All right, let's get back to the episode. How do you think entrepreneurs can overcome the procrastination challenge, especially when we have these big projects or big tasks that feel overwhelming and we tend to procrastinate? And I'm totally asking for myself because I have a big project that I'm procrastinating on right now. So what's your advice on that?
Well, so there is a scientific concept called Parkinson's Law, and it says that work fills the time. So if you have all day to work on something, it's going to take all day and you're not even going to have made that much progress on it. So instead, break something into smaller chunks and give yourself shorter timelines on that. So instead of saying, oh, I've got all morning to work on that. No, go to the grocery store, take a yoga class, swing through the library, get a coffee, and then you have 1 hour to do it. You'd be amazed. You'd get that same task done in an hour or 3 hours because there is the procrastination. There is I'm going to play around with the backgrounds of making this slide deck versus actually putting the meaty information in. Whereas when we're under a time crunch and we're like, this has to be done in an hour, isn't it amazing what we can get done? We can just sort of crank it out. What can be tricky is the timing because, of course, if we know it's a false deadline, like let's say it's due on the 15th, on the 2nd, we say, I have an hour to get this done. That's not going to trick our brain. But if we wait till the 10th, all of a sudden you're like, no, I seriously have to get this done in an hour. You'd be amazed.
Yeah, and that's so true. That's so true. Are there any must-have tools or apps that you love and you recommend to your clients for staying on track and managing their time, managing their tasks?
Yeah, I wish I had a magic answer, but the thing is again, everything is everyone's brain. I love working with earlier emerging entrepreneurs. I really encourage you to stay scrappy. I think something that is a common pitfall is thinking a tool or a platform is going to all of a sudden magically turn things around for us. And we can get talked into, oh, you need to have Kajabi. Oh, you need to have Honeybook. Oh, you've got to. Those things can help, but maybe you don't need all those features. At first, just a regular spreadsheet. Until you're at that point where you've got tons of clients, you can manually send invoices to 3 or 5 clients on your own. I love walking people through that based on here's what they need, here's what they have, and what would be the right fit for them, because it's going to be different industry to industry, company to company. A lot of people are franchisees, so often they're not even choosing, they're getting whatever's coming down from the mothership, and we learn how to best use those things. Some people are more visual, so there's ClickUp, there's Trello, there's Monday. It really depends. Are you a solopreneur? Do you have a team? What are the pieces you need? Because so often these things are huge and they have all these capabilities, but you're only using a small percentage. And I personally would never encourage you to invest in something that you're only leveraging 20% of.
That totally makes sense. I think it's very easy to get this shiny object syndrome where you're like, oh, this tool looks super cool. And for sure, it's going to change my life and it's going to make me super productive all of a sudden. A tool is only as good as how you use it. And if it speaks to your approach,
Yes.
your way of learning, your way of engaging with your work and all of that.
Right. And we see that, even, people are Android versus Apple or Mac versus, PC. Like what's intuitive to one person is not to another.
Yeah.
So in that same expectation. So I would say, try your free trials, play around with things, maybe talk it out with your friends, other entrepreneurs. I'd love to have a conversation and, do my best to take that teacher, that understanding of our neurodivergences and help you apply that. But unfortunately, I don't have a one magic answer.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us a little bit more about your time audit. I want to hear, how does this work? What kinds of feedback do you get about it? How do you work with people on it?
Sure. So it is, a free, easy download. It's 5 days where it's already broken out 30-minute from I think it's 6:30 in the morning till 9 p.m. And you log what you've done. Pick 5 typical days. Obviously, if you're moving offices or you're attending a conference, that's maybe not the time to log because that's not really a good representation of how you spend your time. It doesn't have to be 5 days. I mean, that would be ideal, but if, do what you can, any information is good. Be honest with yourself. If you were, doing laundry or checking social media or, brewing coffee, put that in the log. The more information and the more honesty, the more impactful it will be. At the end of the 5 days, there's a page that helps you kind of compile what you've done. I would say also to set reminders. It is so hard every 30 minutes. So if you set your phone or if you want like a visual timer on your computer, there's a million options. The little reminder, log your time, and it could be something as quick as phone or email. If you want to be really specific about I was on the phone with client A, or I was, working on this project for this specific job, you can do that, but also don't let that specificity be a barrier. It's more about I spent this much time on this project, or how I did my day and what those segments look like. And then you can either kind of analyze that data on your own, or you have the opportunity to schedule a complimentary 30-minute call with me. We can go through it together and we can kind of strategize, brainstorm, and just sort of hold up that mirror of what the reality of your day is like and how can we find those leaky times and patch those up however that would be best for you.
Yeah, I imagine that's a tough exercise for some people to go through, because if people are task switching a lot, it's almost like you mentioned earlier, if you're tracking your food for the first time in a long time, it can be this like tough magnifying glass, but if you don't know what's happening, there's no way to fix it. So I think that it's a really important exercise to go through, and it's definitely something that I want to go through myself. So I'll be downloading your time audit for sure.
I'm so glad. And it's not something you do once and you're done forever too. I would usually say about once a year, or if you want to do it, let's say you have a busy season and a slow season. It might be interesting to do it once during busy time and once during slow to see, because obviously days will be different, your experiences during the different seasons. So, just something to kind of keep mindful. And that's what's nice about the download is you've got it forever. You can print it, use it again, and have it as that just reflection tool to sort of start really looking at where does the time go.
Awesome. And we'll definitely include a link to that in the show notes. If you could give female entrepreneurs just one time management tip that would make the biggest difference in their business, what would it be?
I think it's the permission to not do it all, right? We feel we need to do things, or we think, I don't need to pay somebody to do that. I can just do it myself. And that's true, but your time has value. Your mental energy has value. So instead of saying, oh, I should be the one who bakes that. I should be the one who cleans my house. I should be the one, responding to that email or working with that client. It's okay to delegate that out, to automate things, to kind of carve out time for yourself. That's not selfish.
I think that's really, really key, and comes back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation of this idea that many of us have, that we feel like we have to do it all. And I think that permission piece is so, so powerful. And, you said that you're not a coach, you're not going through the mindset stuff, but I imagine that even just going through the practical aspect of this and really breaking it down and taking that magnifying glass and then starting to shift how you're spending your time and all of that, there's no way for that to not impact your mindset, right? So
absolutely.
You can approach it from either angle, I'm sure.
I'm a teacher at heart. That empathy is there, that understanding that I'm shoulder to shoulder with you wherever you're at. Don't feel like you have to get things to a certain point before you even bring me on or anything. Like there's definitely those components, and no disrespect to coaches, but what's a little different is a coach is going to say, okay, you need to delegate. Okay, you need to use time blocking, but then you walk away from a coaching session with more on your plate. Whereas with me, based on our conversation, there's less. I'm like, okay, thank you for telling me. I'm going to go draft some things. And next time we talk, I'm going to have some options for you. Is this what you were looking for? Is it this? And that is what really moves the needle. Handing off the tedious, the time consuming, having that framework. I use the analogy that hiring me is sort of like hiring an architect. So I'm a short-term contract. I'm not an online business manager or a VA, but I help you build the framework, the systems, the templates, so then you can really successfully leverage VAs, online business managers, project managers, whatever your staff is. So there's definitely that emotional component, but it's so much more than that. And it really moves the needle
Yeah.
versus where coaching, it still kind of falls all back on you and it's more tasks and more things.
No, that totally makes sense. Where can people connect with you and learn more about your productivity coaching?
Sure. So I call myself a small business optimizer. LinkedIn, which is where I was fortunate enough to meet you, Rachel. So thank
Yes.
you. That is where I'm the most active, but I have an Instagram as well. My website, which I'm sure we'll drop in the show notes as well. Feel free if you need a cheerleader, if you need a sounding board, you just want someone to geek out over systems with, reach out, and I'd love to help.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. You shared some really helpful tips, so I'm sure everyone will get a lot out of this episode. So really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, I think you can probably tell that I needed this conversation just as much as maybe you did as well. I have personally been struggling a lot with time management lately. I just feel pretty overwhelmed by a lot of different tasks and a lot of task switching that's been going on. So this was a really helpful conversation for me to have, and hopefully you got some really key ideas from it as well. My favorite nugget from this conversation, even though it sounds so simple, is the recommendation Pamela made to have a list of a few tasks that you want to get done in the morning, first thing in the morning, before you go into checking your email and checking your social media and all of those little tasks that tend to suck us in and take our attention away from the things that really matter. And I love the idea of kind of checking some things off of my list before going into that mode and really just feeling accomplished for the day. So that's definitely one I'm going to be putting into practice. I think the time audit is such a good idea that we all really should go through periodically, right? If you don't know where you're spending your time, you're definitely not spending your time in the most efficient way. None of us are. So I can only imagine what a useful exercise that is to go through, and I will be going through it myself. So I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. One of the things that Pamela mentioned over and over again, this idea of delegating so that you can really stay in your zone of genius. And that's actually why I have my Bold Day of Content offering, because creating content for your business is not everyone's zone of genius. That's my zone of genius, is creating content for my clients and managing their marketing in a really efficient way. But it's not every business owner's zone of genius. In fact, most business owners struggle with it because the thing that they are doing, the thing that they're offering to their clients, has nothing to do with content, right? Content is this essential piece of marketing their business, but that's not why they're doing what they're doing. Maybe you're a coach or a consultant or a therapist, or you sell products for busy moms, right? It doesn't really matter what your zone of genius is. It's probably not managing your content. So after listening to this conversation with Pamela, I want you to really think about how much of your time, energy, and stress is spent on content creation or the idea of content creation. A lot of people stress so much about it that they just don't do it. It just doesn't happen. And if that's a really core pain point of yours, reach out to me. Let's chat. Let's talk about how I might be able to help you manage this in a much more sustainable way and really take that off of your plate. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I'll see you next time. All right, beautiful human, that's it for today's show. This show is brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, with music by Shmookalele. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your podcast listening platform of choice. And if you can take 5 seconds to rate and review us, it really helps the show grow. And before you go, if you're struggling to attract and convert your dream clients, be sure to check out my free mini course, 3 Days to Bold Messaging That Converts, and you'll get personalized feedback from me on how to nail your messaging every time. Head on over to honeybebold.com/free. That's HONEYBEBOLD.com/FREE to sign up. Thanks for listening.